For over 30 years, Monster Jam has remained one of the most successful monster truck leagues in history. Many drivers and their trucks have wanted that sliver of that cake. Unfortunately, we don't see many self-owned trucks competing in Monster Jam today for a wide variety of reasons. You'd be surprised just how many different drivers and trucks have ran under the Monster Jam banner. Here are 50 independents you might have forgotten competed in Monster Jam. Alright, I have some rules to lay out before we begin. Number 1, the truck has to compete in a Monster Jam / USHRA sanctioned event, so exhibitions do not count like King Sling doing a parade lap at a Monster Jam event. Number 2, the truck has to have competed since 2000, so old school trucks like USA 1 and that haven't competed in Monster Jam are excluded from this list. Though I am technically going to make an exception, as you'll see later on. Number 3, the truck cannot be run by another team other than the original, such as Doug Charles's Wild Thing or Chris Roy's Awesome Kong. Number 4, I've decided to exclude teams as a whole, as that could be for another video. Number 5, I am not counting Feld trucks that will run on independent chassis, or just Feld trucks, period. And lastly, number 6, I am not counting alter egos such as Monster Magic and Summit, unless they're not a direct reference to the original or a predecessor / successor. With the rules laid out, let's start this marathon. Number 50, Bigfoot. I know I'm bending the rules with this entry because Bigfoot's last fully USHRA sanctioned event was in 1998 at Stafford Springs. But the truck did make a one-off, well, kind of. In 2003, the USHRA technically sanctioned an event in Dearborn, Michigan to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Ford. And Ford, being one of Bigfoot's biggest sponsors, was kind of forced to attend. Bigfoot was basically a reluctant father-in-law at his daughter's wedding. The main reason Bigfoot is on this list is because it's been so long that Bigfoot was in Monster Jam that the casual monster truck fans today would never have guessed that they used to do business together, since both parties have erased doing business with each other. Hell, Bigfoot even censored a video of a race against Gravedigger. If you want a more detailed explanation, check out California Monster Truck's great documentary on the drama. Number 49, Fluffy. Fluffy was made in collaboration with comedian Gabriel Iglesias. The truck was also meant to be the successor to Kevin King's Straight Jacket. To be honest, I thought this was a Feld truck. But anyway, Fluffy was no doubt a very unique truck when it competed, with the body being a Volkswagen bus. In 2020, the truck was converted back into Straight Jacket before being hauled off to the asylum for good in 2021. Number 48, Spellcaster. The only teammate to War Wizard, Spellcaster ran for only 3 events at the start of the 2006 season, being driven by T.G. Short and Derek Evans as a fill-in driver at Tampa. Interestingly enough, of the 3 events it competed in, it always broke in racing. It never freestyled. One of the truck's 3 events was the 2006 event in Pontiac, the last time Monster Jam ever went there. A Hot Wheels truck was designed for this, however, it was never finished, so therefore it's unreleased. In fact, a prototype doesn't exist of it either. For number 47, I'm going to pass the mic over to Taz91, who definitely knows more about this truck than I do.
Slingshot debuted in 2004 under the command of Carl Swallow. A few successful events in England led to it competing at Arnhem in 2005. This was backed up by another appearance in Arnhem the following year in 2006, alongside an appearance in Paris, France, just across the pond from Carl's home country. These appearances warranted another showing from Carl in 2007, where he competed in all 3 of the big stadium events on the European tour that year, first going to Gothenburg, Sweden, then to Arnhem once again, and closing out with Cardiff, Wales. Unlike its fellow English friend, Slingshot was actually able to get 2, technically 3, television appearances with Monster Jam. This performance in Gothenburg was shown in both a Speed episode and a European broadcast, while its Cardiff performance was able to get covered in another European broadcast only. Slingshot will make 2 more appearances with Monster Jam, competing at Cardiff in both 2008 and 2009, its only appearances on that year's European tours, to round out its Monster Jam campaign. Slingshot continued to compete at many other international events, but never stepped foot on Monster Jam soil again. Sadly, Carl Swallow passed away in 2012 from diabetes, and his nephew Alan Vaughan took over the duties afterwards, and he's still running it to this day.
Number 46, Dominator. Kyle Chandler created this truck after purchasing Intrepid, okay, that's the name for a truck ever, from Dave Ryan when he went on to drive for Paul Schaefer. Chandler, on the other hand, would compete in obscure arena and untelevised stadium shows. In 2010, the truck got its first and only televised appearance in Indianapolis. The truck ran for another 2 years until Chandler sold the truck to American Motor Show, who has had it shelved for a while now. Number 45, Red Baron. The most forgettable 2 Extreme truck debuted in 2010 but didn't make its first Monster Jam event until 2018 at Santa Clara. The truck made a few select events in 2019 and 2020 before 2 Extreme pulled out of Monster Jam. Red Baron remains the least ran truck from the 2 Extreme camp. Number 44, Godzilla. Originally owned by Bob Holdman, in 2002, Steve Heerly bought the truck and name and made a new paint scheme, which looks like a sudden impact ripoff. Godzilla got its only televised appearance on Speed in the 2005 February show in Minneapolis. In 2010, the truck moved to Columbia, where it still competes today. Number 43, High Anxiety. This truck could not decide what to wear, as the truck ran 8 paint schemes during its lifetime. The truck was never shown on Speed, but was shown in the European broadcasts in 2007, Minneapolis Show 2, and San Francisco. The truck retired in 2011. Number 42, Renegade. Not to be confused with Western Renegade, this truck was owned by Chris Roy, who also owned High Anxiety in the previous entry. This truck mainly ran on the West Coast, just like High Anxiety, and made the same TV appearances as well, which I said earlier were only aired in Europe. Number 41, Warrior. A teammate to Aftershock, this Mohawkless Warrior was driven by Roger Cardock everywhere it went, minus a one-off with Jeff Anderson in Worcester 2009. The truck mainly ran in arena appearances as well as a few stadiums as well, the most notable being Toronto 2009, which was only broadcast in Europe. Number 40, Iron Horse. The truck that retires and unretires more than Randy Brown. Iron Horse was created in 2004 by Rob French, who would run the truck in pure obscurity until 2008 when the truck retired. Until 2012 when it made a one-off in Atlanta alongside a teammate truck that I'll mention later. In 2013 the chassis would be repainted and converted into a Grave Rodder, which would then be converted into another truck we'll be mentioning later in 2014. In 2020 Iron Horse would come out of retirement again to run on the Scorpion chassis. In 2002, the truck was sold to Caleb Keys. I hope I said that right. Number 38, Bars Leaks Eliminator. Another arena exclusive truck. Bars Leaks began running in 2007 on the original Annihilator chassis, as if the rims weren't a dead giveaway. The truck was somehow made into die-cast form in 2009, but with a white background instead of the real-life silver, which honestly looks better. The truck ran until 2014. Number 37, Nasty Boy. Built in 2001 as a teammate to a truck we'll see much later, Nasty Boy made an appearance in Anaheim 2005, which was shown in and around the USA to Race segment. The truck was driven by Ronnie Sturgis until his death in 2014. In 2017, the truck would be sold to Gary Eli. Number 36, Pony Express. Originally owned by Tommy Bryan until the late 1990s when it was sold to Jeremy Ward and would mainly run in the arenas. And however, he would compete in stadium events in 2003, but with the 2003 season not being televised, this would sadly be the biggest exposure that the truck got. In 2004, the truck got a die-cast release. A year later, the truck was sold to Larry Quick and converted into Reaper before a legal dispute, which another truck owner forced Quick to change the name to Pure Vengeance, and it would retire at year's end. Sadly, in 2008, Tommy Bryant, the original owner, died at 58. In 2015, the chassis was sold to Dave Cooley, who would convert it back into Pony Express, and the truck continues to run to this day. Number 35, ROCKSTAR. That's right, ROCKSTAR. I'm shocked that the chassis was even allowed to run, considering it's a huge disadvantage since the chassis is so short it makes Gravedigger 7 look like Gravedigger 12. But anyway. ROCKSTAR hung, no pun intended, around the arena shows, just like 60% of the trucks on this list. Believe it or not, ROCKSTAR was able to win a couple events during its short tenure in Monster Jam, mainly in the 2009 event in Montgomery, as you see on screen right now. Number 34, Unnamed and Untamed. The ironically named truck ran out west, mainly in independent shows, until 2005 when it would make a one-off in Anaheim alongside Nasty Boy. The only exposure the event would see, as I mentioned earlier, was in around the USA to Race segment. After that, the truck became a staple at the World Finals pit parties. Number 33, MOPAR Muscle. No relation to MOPAR Magic, which was run by Steve Sims, or the original MOPAR Magic. MOPAR Muscle was run by the Hall Bros in 2014 after establishing a sponsorship with MOPAR, and would serve as a temporary replacement for Hot Seat, as it was run on the Hot Seat chassis in its debut. MOPAR Muscle would get a televised appearance in Arlington. However, the truck itself was short-lived, as it would retire at year's end. Number 32, M2D Camo Thunder. That's a name. A short-lived teammate to Tropical Thunder and the Patriot, running for only one season in 2012. The truck was, for some reason, made into die-cast form, but I'm glad it did because it's a pretty cool truck. Number 31, Blown Thunder. Heading back to Europe, so it's time to drag Taz back on stage.
Blown Thunder was originally built in 1996 and was driven by Doug Cole in the United States. Under Doug, the truck did appear at a few Monster Jam events, but these were untelevised. In 2003, Doug sold Blown Thunder over to Trevor Stimson in England, where it would stay until the end of its lifespan. Under the ownership of Trevor, Blown Thunder was able to appear in a couple of Monster Jam events, all of which were international, also becoming one of two European trucks to be the first ones to compete alongside the stars of Monster Jam. It appeared at Arnhem, Holland 2005, performing moderately well, but was just too outgunned by the grizzled veterans. In mid-2006, Trevor began on a new Blown Thunder build, which in return retired the original truck. This new truck, sporting a Dodge Ram body, made its debut at Arnhem 2006. Once again, it was heavily outperformed by the bigger names. The Dodge Ram Blown Thunder managed to notch up one last Monster Jam event in Helsinki, Finland just a few weeks later, this time with Swedish driver Anders Flogard behind the wheel. This was the last Monster Jam show for Blown Thunder, with the original version getting one show and the new one getting two shows, tallying up 3 shows overall for its records, under Trevor's ownership that is. Unfortunately, the Dodge Ram Blown Thunder didn't last much longer after this, as Trevor would sell it to Lars Larson, who then converted it into Thor, which Anders would drive for several years. Thor still runs to this day, and notched up several Monster Jam events in its own right.
Number 30, RAPTOR'S Rampage. We're going back to famous trucks that made forgotten Monster Jam appearances. RAPTOR'S Rampage is one of the most famous monster trucks in Australia, at least in terms of original trucks. In 2013, the truck competed in its only Monster Jam event in Sydney as a part of their first trip to Australia. Number 29, American Cowboy. Very little is known about this truck, minus the fact that it was the original Extreme Overkill, and the chassis would go on to become Euro's King on Wheels, which would go on to, well, you know. American Cowboy mainly stuck in the arenas during its rather short lifespan. Number 28, Raging Bull, our third European truck, so you know what that means. Take it away, Taz.
A Finnish truck created and driven by Vesa Kivimaki, Raging Bull sports a stylish 55 Chevy Nomad body style, quite similar to Avenger but not exactly the same. Vesa and Raging Bull mostly compete at small events across Finland alongside Monster X shows held in its home country. Naturally, not long after the truck's debut and Monster Jam heading to Finland for its European tour, Raging Bull came along for those shows. It first appeared at Helsinki 2009, performing moderately well here, gaining support from the locals, and followed up with a further 2 appearances in 2011 and 2013, also in Helsinki. This brings Raging Bull's Monster Jam appearances to 3, as it didn't appear again after 2013. Vesa is still running Raging Bull in Finland, and is still doing a great job entertaining its Finnish fans.
Number 27, Total Chaos. Another forgotten truck in general. Total Chaos was created from a conversation between Brian Bartle and Andrew Felix about how Raging Steel was a bland truck. Bartle pitched the idea, and the truck ran mainly in the arena shows during the 2005 season. After the truck's retirement, the chassis was used as a replacement War Wizard chassis after its Atlanta 2006 destruction. Number 26, Wild Thing. Not to be confused with Wild Thang, though ironically debuted in the same year. Wild Thing was driven by Marvin Anderson and would compete in the iconic Tacoma 2002 event where Major Obsession did its Spider-Man impression. The truck somehow won the freestyle competition there in the 3rd show. Number 25, Podzilla. And for the final time, sorry to say, here's Taz.
Another big name in the English monster truck industry, Podzilla debuted in 2007 under Drew Thornton after being converted from the former Thunderfoot truck. Drew and Podzilla made their names in England, usually performing at events held in the Santapod Raceway in Wellingborough, England. They competed at their first and only Monster Jam event at Cardiff in 2010, being one of the 2 local trucks along with Swamp Thing, which made several more appearances with Monster Jam. Fortunately for Podzilla, its performance at the event was a little disappointing. It first raced around the oval course in qualifying alongside Taz, putting up one of the slowest times of the night. This was followed by a round 1 race against Iron Man, which it lost. This would essentially be Podzilla's entire Monster Jam resume, as it missed out on freestyle due to the driving seat being set too high, sitting out in the pit area for the rest of the event. Drew would never take Podzilla to another Monster Jam event, but would still find plenty of success in shows across England. Drew retired in 2017 after 10 years behind the wheel of the truck, selling it to Gary Anderson, who still drives it to this day.
From number 24 to number 2, I'm going to speed run through these entries, either because there's almost no information, or I just don't care enough to dive super deep into these trucks. So hold on to your seats, because it's going to be a trip. Number 24, Livewire, competed mainly in the West Coast arena shows in the early 2000s, and in 2004 got a diecast release, and a few years later got a Hot Wheels original paint scheme. Number 23, Shock Therapy, Paul Schaefer version. Apparently no relation to SIR's Shock Therapy, which would run 2 years later. This truck ran in the final Monster Jam season for Paul Schaefer Motorsports. Number 22, Wildfire, made a one-off appearance in 2012 at Atlanta, alongside with Iron Horse, which was also owned by Rob French. Number 21, Sniper, famously caught on fire in Miami 2001. It was renamed to Incinerator a year later, out of respect following a series of sniper attacks in Washington, D.C. Number 20, Big Trouble. Originally misbehaving, the truck was run for only 2 years before being sold back to Craig Christensen Motorsports in 2003. Number 19, Tow Monster. Converted from the original Freedom Force chassis, Tow Monster would make an appearance at the second and final Rock the Dome event in Tacoma in 2014. The truck still runs to this day. Number 18, Carnivore. Originally named Avenger, Pizzo changed the name after a naming dispute between him and Jim Kohler. In the end, Pizzo let Kohler have the naming rights and renamed the truck to Carnivore. Number 17, Killer B, ran in the mid to late 2000s until the original chassis was sold and became Higher Education in 2010. In 2014, the truck was revived and continues to run. Number 16, Shockwave, it existed. Number 15, Big Crunch, originally Terrorizer, the truck debuted in 2004 and retired in 2012. The chassis also competed in the Ben 10 Monster Mania event in 2011. Number 14, Temporarily Insane. This truck was owned and driven by Rod Schmidt until 2002 when Schmidt joined Team Gravedigger. Number 13, Demon, Rich Blackburn's first truck, as I mentioned earlier, but more obscure, who, unlike Viper, stuck mainly in the arenas for its entire Monster Jam tenure. Number 12, HAVOC, ran by Steve Hurley, sounds familiar, and served as a teammate to Get Her Done until being sold and converted into Robo Machine in 2010. Number 11, Dreamcatcher, the first truck owned and driven by Drew Haygood, debuted in 2007 and ran until 2009 when it was converted into Desperado, which had a much more pronounced existence than Monster Jam. The truck ran until 2013 when Drew Haygood lost his battle with cancer. He was 55 years old. Number 10, Hotshot, a teammate to Livewire. The truck was driven by Jim Leonard's brother, Michael. In 2004, Pablo Huffaker apparently served as a fill-in. Number 9, Skyscraper. Converted from Wild Child, Skyscraper ran for only 2 years before converting into High Ride and then into T-Rex. Number 8, Misbehavin', ran only once in 2009 and made an appearance in Montgomery. Fun fact, this and its teammate Dealbreaker are the only two monster trucks to be Pontiacs. Number 7, Skeletor. Originally Iceman, Skeletor was created by Stephen Carroll in 2002 using the Iceman chassis before being sold to KCM in 2004. And would get a stadium appearance in Phoenix before being converted into the third Captain Insano. In 2006, the chassis was then converted into P-Zest and retired at year's end. Number 6, God, Guts, and Glory. Considered one of the most unremarkable trucks of all time, but allegedly made a one-off in 2004 in Montgomery, although there is no photo from what I could find, and definitely no footage. Number 5, SANDMAN, owned by Rick Disarun as a teammate to Backdraft, and it was driven by his wife, Lisa. Number 4, Bimark, converted from the original Survivor chassis. It ran in the arenas until the early 2000s. Number 3, Muscle Machines, a forgotten alter ego to Thunderstruck, ran by Craig Christensen Motorsports. Number 2, Bluegrass Stomper, made an appearance in 2007 in Lexington and one in 2008 in Calvert City. Alright, let's all slow all the way down. We've seen 49 unusual indies so far, so what could possibly be left? Well, this truck is pretty special. Number 1, Twisted Dragon, a truck in which nobody believed competed in Monster Jam until September of 2022 when footage of it competing in its lone Monster Jam event was found. Twisted Dragon debuted in 2007 and ran its only Monster Jam event in what would be its last season in 2014 in Boise. The truck was sold to Larry Quick sometime before 2017 and became Clownin' Around, and later Project Backflip 2 years later, thus ending the story of Monster Jam's most forgettable independent appearance. A big thank you to Taz91 for letting me borrow his voice box for a few entries, and definitely going in much more detail than I ever could. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you on the flip side.